Welcome back to the Dillinger Labs Death from Above and Death from Below video manual. In this video, we'll show you how to access time-align mode, and we'll explain some situations where you might want to add a time delay to one or more receivers. Accessing time-align mode is the same for both DFA and DFB. Tap the power button 5 times. You'll see 5 lights in the LED stack, confirming you're in time-align mode. Turn the volume knob to select one of 6 time delay settings. No LED means no delay. LED 1 adds 1 millisecond of delay. LED 2 adds 2 milliseconds of delay. LED 3 adds 4 milliseconds of delay. LED 4 adds 7 milliseconds of delay. And LED 5 adds 11 milliseconds of delay. Like with the other modes, once you've made your selection, tap the power button 1 time to confirm or wait 10 seconds. Just note that if you're using DFB Mark I, your time-align settings will be different. See the user manual for more information. A simple and practical reason to use time-align mode is to tighten up your sound. Even with the standard setup of a DFA on a pole directly above DFB, delaying the subwoofer by just 1 or 2 milliseconds can help the high-frequency transients from the tops get out in front of the bass, resulting in a punchier, more defined sound. For this, use LEDs 1 or 2 to add 1 or 2 milliseconds of delay to the subs. If your venue requires you to place your receivers in different locations, you can also use the time delay settings to compensate for physical distance. You can use the formula distance in feet is equal to delay in milliseconds times 1.125. For example, if your DFB is sitting 5 feet behind your DFA, the formula would be 5 feet is equal to 1.125x. Solve for x and you get 4.4. So you'd need about 4.4 milliseconds of delay to compensate. In this case, you'd set your DFA to LED 3, which provides 4 milliseconds of delay. To compensate for 7 feet of distance, you'd need 6.22 milliseconds of delay. That's close enough to 7 milliseconds to use LED 4, but for some distances, like 10 feet for example, you'd need 8.88 milliseconds of delay. Or for 11 feet, you'd need 9.78 milliseconds of delay. For these, try LED 4 on DFA first, then compare the sound to LED 5. Use whichever option sounds best. It's often better to undercompensate a bit rather than overcompensate, because overcompensation can result in the DFA's sound being delayed behind the DFB, which will cause the sound to be muddy and lose its impact. Time alignment is also a very powerful tool for managing the Haas effect, which is how our brain determines the direction of a sound source. Imagine you have your main stacks by the DJ, but you have a secondary side fill stack 30 feet away by the bar. Without any delay, as a guest walks toward the bar, they'll start to perceive the music as coming from the bar rather than from the stage. By adding an 11 millisecond delay, which is LED 5, to the bar stack, you can effectively trick the listener's brain. This expands the perceived listening zone, meaning that the audience can walk much further toward the bar while still feeling like the music is coming from the DJ's stage area. You can use these settings to create a directional bass array with 2 subs, which focuses the low-end energy toward the crowd while significantly reducing the bass pollution on stage behind and around the speakers. To do this, place 2 DFBs at center stage, one directly behind the other, both facing the audience. Position the front face of the rear unit exactly 5 feet and 7.5 inches behind the front face of the front unit. Set the front unit to LED 4 and the rear unit to LED 2 for a difference of 5 milliseconds. All other settings should be identical. This arrangement, along with the physical spacing, creates a cardioid effect. So this beams the bass energy forward to the audience and uses phase cancellation to keep the area behind the stack remarkably quiet. And this can also help with events that are close to homes or businesses, and you want to keep the bass contained. In situations where you're using two DFAs in a fixed position right next to each other, you can also use the time delay settings to steer the sound in one direction or another. This is called beam steering. If your DFAs are on a Y adapter, on a stand, or a speaker pole, obviously you can just turn the speakers in the direction you want. In this graphic, you'll see there are two pairs of speakers that are wall mounted and pretty close to a corner. While bass frequencies tend to be more omnidirectional and spread out everywhere, this arrangement leaves a hole in the middle of the room for treble and mid frequencies. If you delay the inner speakers by 1 or 2 milliseconds, this will tilt the sound inward toward the middle of the room, filling that hole. So that wraps up the Deaf from Above and Deaf from Below video manual. While the default settings will sound great right out of the box, don't be afraid to use these power user modes to fine-tune your sound for the specific needs of your venue. To learn more about DFA, DFB, and our full lineup of transmitters and receivers, head over to ska.com or skastore.com. If you want to customize the look of your system, you can shop custom color accessories at the Ska Store Custom Shop. And to stay up to date on the latest ska products and videos like this, make sure to subscribe to the Ska Sound YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.